Welcome and thank you for supporting the Montana Book Festival. Today, this current event is the Celebrate Montana Book Festival Kickoff Poetry Reading. We're going to be hearing from 3 poets.
Emma, we can't hear you.
Okay, I'll eat it a little more then. So, we're going to be hearing from Geffrey Davis, Sarah Aronson, and Chawla. So, start with Sarah. Sarah Aronson is a Montanan by way of Alaska. Her debut collection of poems, And Other Bodiless Powers, won the 2018 New American Poetry Prize. She is also the host of the Montana Public Radio literary program and podcast, The Right Question. And then Geffrey Davis is the author of Night Angler, winner of the 2018 James Laughlin Award from the Academy of American Poets, and Revising the Storm, which won the A. Poland Jr. Poetry Prize in 2013. He also co-authored the chapbook Begotten with poet F. Douglas Brown, which was named and he's been named a finalist for the Hurston Wright Legacy Award and has received numerous publications and prizes over the years. And then lastly, Chawla is a writer and academic. Suddenly that word is really hard to deal with right now. She has 7 volumes of poetry, 8 plays, and 2 novels to her credit. She's from New Delhi, India, where she had taught as a tenured professor of English literature for nearly 20 years before settling in a suburb of Maryland, close to D.C., more than 2 decades ago. She holds a PhD in English from the George Washington University in D.C., and she's on the faculty of Thomas Edison State University in New Jersey. So I would like to invite Sarah to come on up and give us her poetry.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. Thanks, Montana Book Festival organizers and volunteers. I decided I'm going to try and keep this short because I'm a regular and we have guests, so I'm going to donate my time. So 3 short poems, 1 long poem. Here we go. The mic more? Okay. Thank you. Lacuna. What arrival? Moonless distension, calving generations of shy mammals. You put ice in your mouth to heighten the taste. I see those animal ears back there. I decided to work with the theme today of the full moon. That's tomorrow. Does anyone else like planetary bodies? Woo! And apparently I'm distending myself a lot in these poems, so here we go. Seam of light through a thicket of night trees. Granite dolled up in hydrogen. I name a planet already named by a man. Distend my soft core, trying to call your homelessness home. Benign nevus of my eye, how long can I stand on one leg? When even my brother is ions, blood cells, every form of suffering. When will I know you won't need a body that is mine? Letting blood be sap and rain in my mouth. Take my right hand, left hand, turn my palms up, draw a card. The other thing I'm working with is I had a poet friend who once said that she could tell the state of her well-being based on how frequent she checked her horoscope. And that doesn't resonate for me at all. But this last poem is dedicated to Mary Falgren, who's one of the organizers' parents in Glasgow. She shows up in this poem. It's called Lunar Breaks. Astrology Zone. August is likely to be one of your very favorite months this year. Push the clutch in, cry. Catch a ride to the orthopedic urgent care in a cab in a white dress. The woman who had the woman who had me could have married a dentist with a temper. No rogue planets. Dissolve 1 cup sugar. Riding my bike with 1 leg. PAC presses thumb into what is torn is also tender. concern seems genuine. Keep hiking boots dry in an old dog food bag strapped to a kayak. Muddle basil, juice of 2 lemons. The leitmotif of this opera is insurance nearly covers the cost of people touching me. Marry for money. Every time I see my grandmother, she tells me I have the most remarkable eyebrows. New MD lifts one eyelid and hums, white and quiet, deep and clear. His assistant enters into the EMR. Has 17 unfinished charts. Self-consciousness seems genuine. Didn't just stain it, eyeliner, push the clutch in, drive. Because I can't walk, can't fish. 5 female mergansers, 1 kingfisher. Deep and quiet, deep and clear. Check for tobacco dust, manifest refraction, full or resultant acuity. The leitmotif of this opera is soft tissue damage. Fashion 3 gin basils. Bid on a dinosaur bone ring, white and quiet. Swelling down, flexion up to 16. I am always a patient before I am a woman. Release the tiny X valve on the inflatable kayak to hold air. Report from point of contact in case I don't return. Know in your bones, I will know. Thank you.
Sure, I guess. We'll hear from Geffrey Davis next.
Sorry, I was late. My plane landed not 30 minutes ago. Rushed over here. So I'm going to read from this most recent book, Night Angler. I'll try not to do that anymore. The Fidelity of Water. 1. Thousands of miles from home, you wake in a cheap hotel, with thirst so urgent you have no choice but to find the bathroom faucet with your mouth. Drink deep and understand the daily sigh made by bodies everywhere in this small town. Your new cushy job gives you bottled artesian water, which you consider as you taste the tap. Used to be, there was no good distance between this rivery tang and your fluid desires. Used to be, you'd shove aside a sweaty friend or jab a sibling for the first shot at placing lips to the only neighborhood source. Used to be no future in yearning. Feel how far you've come. Prayer with miscarriage. Dear boy, it is true. You took 2 tries to get here. For your mother and me to calyx together a body bold enough to carry the grace of you. Amen. So forgive us if we still bow inside the garden of your miscarried becoming. Grant us the ruined grounds of the first prayer, fiercer than our cleaved breathing. How could we rush to rinse the word loss from our de-parented mouths? Remember this. We surrendered a new name for everything to the tender hour at our chest. Nothing blooms in the old field of maybe. No sound flowers above please. But we endure what's not delivered from the impressions planted by our knees. Amen. This one is, can you all hear me? Okay. This is about being a survivor of childhood sexual abuse and how that makes you question the meaning of your own hands, especially when you touch a new body. Survivor. My arms become two battered branches. The first time I reach toward the not yet wrinkled tenderness of my son's backside, bound to the pre-gnaw of a soiled diaper. Elle lies in our living room, postpartum and pitched inside the warm depth of her own recovery, body busy with soothing the glory of its new stitching. How many darknesses can turn a desire? How many good breaths to cast one wound from the sky? I open as if breaking, until a sudden and enthusiastic and sunshiny geyser of urine from my son's penis startles me into the inane proverb of a laughter you never see coming. My hands still shake as I cinch the boy back into the thin cleanliness of another waiting. And yes, eventually I weep, but only after, and only outside, kneeling in the garden, well beyond the indivisible light of his future. Amen. This is a sonnet series. It tries to be. And then the form was fighting me, and rather than fix it, I decided it was safer to let it fail. Sometimes your failure is telling you something. And this is self-portrait as a dead black boy. 1. At 13, for a whole dark season, I was lethal with my pellet gun, murdering minor things that wandered into yard, stalking the thin woods between our house and the highway. I picked off any bird, squirrel, rabbit, snake I could track. If I had 2 surprise seconds to explain the meaning of my hands, my instincts would have been to show you the weapon, to turn, hoping you could see gentleness poised behind the risk. So when Tamir Rice was shot X times, the toy pistol he carried couldn't have killed anything, big or small, even if he tried. But of course, as the story goes, that math's all wrong. 2. The law among my friends growing up, whosever car had the best sound, assuming they wasn't in trouble with their mama, drove. We rode the wheels off of TT's grandma's burgundy hoopty because of how the bass from its speakers trembled the tips of our hair and slapped our young bodies alive with a beat. So when Jordan Davis was shot X times, his legs and lungs and aorta pierced, a citizen who hated the rattle that black folks can make when they make it out the house, all around, America's trespass music fell. Even now, a different mood than mine hits my ears like rain. 3. I made it to 28 without owning a gun. And then my son burst onto the scene with thousands of miles between me and my tribe. So I learned it took just hours to return loaded and licensed to conceal a new danger. However, as soon as I felt that dark weight tucked against my torso, I realized the mistake. How few and unsafe the scenarios with me pointing this threat at another threat to survive. So now, on my knees, I'm preparing my heart to receive the next shots, until a new divinity forbids one more black body be burned down according to an imagination that feeds its godliness with fear as seen through smoke. 4. In my 30s now, I buy sneakers that don't slip off my feet and feel older for the fit. On the way home from getting new pairs, we stop at a local farmer's market. And before exiting the vehicle, my boy and I change into our fresh kicks to feel godly while walking aisles of shining produce and handcrafted candles. So when Philando Castile was shot X times, a bullet searing through each year of his little girl's life in the back seat, I can't see his shoes in the documentary of this dying, but his body slides in and out of his safety belt as cop keeps weapon trained, a dark star stopping the open question of his window. 5. Sometimes a sleeplessness blesses you. In our shared family bed, I lie awake and hear the steady sonata of my wife and son's unconscious breath, turning our room into this shore with a midnight tidal music I wouldn't want to live without. So when Eric Garner was denied air for X seconds, the song and kin of his lungs flattened above the city's dirty sidewalk. Let us pray. 6. On occasion, I weep while watching the living brown X of my hand move across the page, swift and controlled and sometimes remaining perfectly still. So I've written this poem out in longhand, in the best cursive I can manage, under light that bends into something soft enough to call healthy, none of which can keep me alive, no matter the grace. What make a man? What kind of wound make a man set his favorite rooster loose on a dying hen? What make the man snap the neck of that twice broken bird before his child's eyes? What make him see the bad idea after the fact? What open him like a storm? What make a man refuse to ask forgiveness? What make him offer the sudden softness of his voice instead? What get the man loaded? What make him choose to carry the small brightness of his child's body through the cold, sleeping city? No. What make a man decide to drift the roads anyway, so his child stay warm in the front seat? What make him park the car 2 blocks away? What arms filled and humming, "You are my sunshine," each dark step of the way home? Sorry for the bad singing. The fidelity of music. It took time and travel to understand how the word father sings to me in all languages. I want daddy, but father abuser crosses the notes or keys I believe have barricaded the badness of that man. I hear father addict in the damn silence. Of course, my wholehearted hope had no chance, which I should have known once I learned guitar, the first instrument I tried to turn against him. Riffed father liar, plucked father thief. But for each piece of music I make into a door for Daddy's return, Father deserter has orchestrated, without warning, another empty house of blues. Do you hear what it means for me to sing my son to sleep? So I was working on this chapbook with this poet, F. Douglas Brown. It was beautiful and wonderful, and you should check out his work. And I wrote this kind of what I thought was a one-off flippant poem beefing with the verse John 3:16. For God so loved the world, he gave his only begotten son. And for some reason, like it pissed me, the verse pissed me off one day when I was working, and it was something I think about the certainty of conversion. Like I was a new father and I thought, how could you know? I mean, even if it was for the world, how could you know? I know, it's very irreverent. It feels irreverent. And I just did this one poem and he was like, we have to keep writing about this. There's something here, which that's what I loved about that collaboration, is it pushed me to not move on too quickly. So I'm going to read, and so there's a series in this book that riffs on this. Not always direct, but. So this is 316 World. Would you believe this motherfucker? At the Latin restaurant, leaned in, then reeled back and hollered, "Ew, Daddy stinks," for all to hear. I admit I hadn't showered since the day before yesterday, in my normal, absent-minded kind of way. So he could have been right, which made me laugh and made him double down. He asked to see my arm, sniffed loud as hell when I extended it, and this time, ew, Daddy stinks because he's brown. Did I slap the angel shit out of him? Did I joke away another dark American wrongness as preschool play? Did I weep so that the whole room would let him hug my confusion? Have I done any right thing? So I'll read there's several poems in here called The Night Angler, which the collection borrows its title from. So I'll read the last one of the third one of those. Dear boy, despite my return to running water and migratory moods, I've spent your life trying to break the feathered wheel of habit in my voice, to bring you evidence that I am done revising the seasons of storm, the God cycles of hurt breath. There I go again. Dear boy, I played you the voicemails my father left years ago, and understood then how my tongue will also travel, will mutate to find you, will draw whatever blood it takes to carry the word Father to your feet. Dear boy, I witnessed the moment your mother galvanized pain into a waterway you ran to get here. Forget that and forfeit the first promise pumped inside your chest. Cut that and you might as well spill a sudden bucket of your own blood. Not a day has passed without the word woman holding you in its mouth, holy with movement. Dear boy, let the record show we invented one another. Family, a lighted story set against the shadow and dawn of distances. When I am gone, hold and heat the vastness of this creation. Don't stop speaking to me. Dear boy, on the second message, my father is saying, I just had to listen to your voice, haven't heard you in a while. And the tribe in his throat trembles. How many gardens have I abandoned to this grief? For the sun so loved the worry, he gave his only begotten reality and called the Father back. Dear boy, in the beginning, Father was a fear I wanted to call love. For years, I waded heart deep into that doubt. For a version of my name I could, with some forgiveness, cast before your image. Dear boy, here's my hand. Because your arrival has mended the grave current of time. In the beginning, I was talking to you. And I'm going to close with this short sonnet. Thank you so much for having me and letting me barely make it. And so this is, I think about this book as a book-length love letter to my son, not always direct. And I have a lot of, I have a lot of questions, but there's a lot of things that I'm afraid of, and I couldn't wait to have this conversation, but I had no idea of when to give him the book. And I didn't realize what that question meant until I fell asleep on our couch and I woke up to him reading from this book to my wife, and the ways in which people in your lives, especially children, have this kind of graceful taking things out of your control that you would have never come to a safe conclusion about. And then he came over and started reading to me, and it's been a long time since I've tried that intensely not to start weeping so that the person across from me would keep going. And then he got to this poem, and he was like, no, you did not put this in this book. And I was like, no, read the poem, finish it. And he read it, and he got to that, and he was like, okay, this is a good book, Dad. And so it really doesn't matter what any of you all think. The real review is in.
How old is he?
He just turned 8. Yeah. And so it's about a mole that's on his body, and it's called, very creatively, For the Child's Mole. We won't tell you where it lies, as in time we might need the minor intimacy of that secret. Just creatures, heavy with hope and begging against the grave song inside our living. We have agreed his death is the one cold chord we refuse to endure from the sorry endlessness of the blues. And if ever we fail to bear the rate at which we feel the world pining for the body of our boy, we can conjure that mole, the small brown presence of it, tucked where only tenderness would think to look, and recall when it seemed nothing about our child could drift beyond the terrible certainty of love's reach.
Yes, 2 minutes. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for your time and effort in coming here to listen to me read my poetry. I had planned on reading from my upcoming sixth volume of poetry on the theme of immigrants and immigration. But upon arriving in Montana, this beautiful town surrounded by mountains and small hills, I made a quick turnaround and decided I'm going to speak about, I'm going to read from my fifth volume of poetry on the Himalayas, in the arms of which I spent my childhood. My fifth volume of poetry is a long 110-page poem. That's broken up into 8 sections. I'm going to read excerpts from different sections. Yes, you could stop you could perhaps, if anyone wants to, just skim it. I have just 2 copies, so I thought I'll just kind of let you skim it. My 110-page long poem on the Himalayas is my own personal response to the cultural and the physical landscape of the mountains, where I adopt a dialogic tone addressing them as you. The Himalayas are not just grand and majestic. Of course, you've heard about the tallest peak, 29,000 feet high, right? That's Mount Everest. But the Himalayas are not just grand and majestic and somewhat intimidating. There's a quality of sacredness about them. They move us and speak to us as religion would speak to and move fervent believers. In the first section of my poem, I interweave the geological origins of the poems with their mythological birth. The carving of the Himalayan mountains, although a geological blink of an eye, involved the collision and the shifting of the tectonic plates under the Earth's surface about 50 million years ago. The continental plates were crumpled as the Earth's crust got kind of distorted and mangled and folded by lateral compression. This process is called orogeny. The Himalayas are a young and dynamic mountain range, and its terrain is perpetually evolving. It is this enigmatic nature of the Himalayas that has given birth to all the various myths and legends associated with the mountains. If being tall is being splendid, you loom large in your largesse, rise high and bold, covered in gleaming gold and green, rock brown, mighty and majestic, standing tall. You are the Himalayas, rock strong. A blanket of silvered mist covers your summits, your rocky life between. Himavat ruled you, his snow abode, where with his wife Minavati, he gave birth to the lovely Ganga and to the ever-nurturing Parvati, two daughters, two forms of giving. 1,500 miles of Devi worship, a vast kingdom of mesmerizing meditation, fate deciding karma, an experiential reality mixed with gyan, share a portion of the divine, rituals of pure bhakti. If a churning, if a music can be created out of a collision, pulsing and surging between two tectonic plates, crush and break into a 1,500-mile long mountain arc, decline its head, a section of the earth becomes estranged, lumbers lumpishly, contorted and deformed, as if its throat was cold by the lateral compression. Is it moving? Are the pictures? Orogeny is like a dance, the jewel of the youngest range, kindling new love into triangular stars, uplifted, metamorphosed, sedimented, rock-like. An ocean gathers around it, declines its head, Tethys gets buried, lost in the soft waters. The volcanoes fringing like antiques that are thrust-faulted. The art of composing a continental thrust, middle passages govern, subduct into an oceanic trench, designed to tighten around the body of the mantle, then rise. The plate pushes under the plateau like a whisper rising to a scream, like a convergence, a visionary company, a seismic encroachment to fling. So you will rise higher, pulse by pulse, the angelus of thrusts, heaping, growling in geological activity, nor barren, neither abated, move upward. You have witnessed ice sheets compressed with pure rage. There you spread along your northern edges, crooked neighbor of my dreams, my dread. The Himalayas have traditionally been associated with a state of heightened consciousness. The next few sections explore its physical attributes, its peaks and glaciers, its flora and fauna, its rivers and its people. Like strips of you, the majesty of the Himalayas, like a child from your womb, your rivers and lakes, like multi-lettered, many-meaning, one-syllabled word, demand reverence, a space filled with your own being. all sidelong bending, making space through your steep armor, blowing a whistle of watery blue in your stillness. Fill your heart with the waters as your power expands, enriched in harmony. Rocks that contain untraced falls, rocks that sediment the hymns of time, rocks that metamorphose forms of lingering notes, only a moss grows, like a toothy horned grimace, injected those narrow walls of high-speed winds, a loud sound-splitting bassoon, fast and freezing jet stream, not even furtive pity, injected into the stratosphere. In a long white gown, confused, mounted, and dressed in snow, blizzards that spew an unremembered time, and avalanches that could freeze death in its path, the turbid ardor of its rumbling, a thick blast of rock, ice and wind sliding, gliding, then shudder through its own mast head. Forbidden terrain of forbidden dreams, gorges, high passes, flat valleys through gorges, where all twists and turns, fast flowing rivers, all interiorized. Precious jewel of the illustrious who placed you, Mount Kailash, near the blue burst of Lake Mansarovar, at the edge of this earth, paving a path toward the skies, heavenward. What does a walk around the mountain do? Why circle the invisible jade lake? I'm the symbol, I'm the Shakti, echoes the great mountain. There's a web of ecological cause and effect among the mountain species that is too complicated for us humans to untangle. The Himalayan ranges are an ideal habitat for a rich and unique species of fauna and flora. The varying life zones support an exciting range of fauna, but encroachment on the forest cover by the human population has of course forced many threatened species into the protected zones where the natural habitat is still preserved. This will naturally segue into the sixth section of my poem on the environmental forces that threaten the Himalayas, the biodiversity and human livelihoods of the region. Will the snowbirds sing an ode to the dandelions and the mountain sorrel, the soil beneath that sustains, then break into the trailing streams and lakes? Through the verdant gorges that tumble down, the densely tufted rhododendrons sparkle in the sun, pay themselves off as ecosystem engineers, acidify the mountain soil, their wanted impulses given, else benefit themselves, like the gust swelling, threatened, corpse-like, unseeded, amid the western alpine shrubland, amid the rumbling voices, rhododendrons, fuse with the voices of summer, the cold on a long, wet Himalayan leash. Then the cameras would steal time to shoot at the shy musk deer, munch quietly on your leaves and grasses. The surprise of its slow ending is no surprise, trapped by its own scent gland, endangered by its own curse, its given possibilities, latent only in the male musk deer, stay far away from human habitation. Without antlers, broad-toed, stocky adaptation of your high altitudes. The rhetoric of silence also turns over. The Himalayan black and brown bear jump down, falling over as a violent catapult, omnivorous as a stolen sentence. Gaze on as your animals disappear, mute witness. The Himalayas are under threat. Deforestation is laying vast stretches barren. Several rare and endemic species, of course, are threatened with extinction, and droughts and floods are a recurrent phenomenon. Although astoundingly rich in natural wealth, the Himalayas have lost almost 70% of its original habitat, and its flora and fauna are in great danger, threatened by both anthropogenic impacts and climate change. Conversion of forests on the Himalayan mountains to agricultural land and for developmental purposes, and the exploitation of the forests for fuel wood, for timber, for fodder are some of the main threats to biodiversity in the Himalayas. With development comes a greater demand for energy. And of course, we've heard about the numerous dams that have been created without due environmental impact assessment that has led to the submergence of arable lands. Climate change has also contributed to the accelerated glacier retreat observed in the Himalayas. The human and the ecological displacement is one thing. To tease out a poem from it is another matter altogether. Root rot is a real offense, wasted. Human life supports it as much as pathogens, inducted acridly into the grand scheme of exposed all, snapped. Conditions that attack and corrode, coffin length, just as the human soul becomes compressed, shrewd as fungal pathogen, gouged, piteous, eat, no pause, then eat. When conifers become susceptible, they kneel, then part, broken, limb waiting by bitter limb. The caustic, stressed effects shake these mountains, limbering, grieving, bend, move, break, austere trunks, crack old and mature trees, moldy, enclosed, disagree with each other, then hunched, send apocalyptic screams through the bellies. Landslides bury people into a lonesome dark. Trawled by mud and debris, what must develop in urban fashion, setting your world on its own haunches, puncturing force of nature's sad fury. The Himalayas is linked in my mind to an inner disposition of the soul. It represents much more than an external landscape. The Himalayas are a reality that transcends reality. It represents to me a fusion of the material with the immaterial, of the tangible with the intangibility of our souls. Its silence is a vision, its beauty a revelation, its enduring quality an eternal symbol. Rain in your rugged soaring mountains defines peace, a creeping, steady pause in life's monumental wretchedness, tricky trickle, then grudged peace again. No thunder nor storm cries human meriting, a swish, as life departs, gives broad room, breath by losing breath, chained to losing breath, as the giant shadows of your overtures loom, grey echoing monsters larger than life, tender somewhat, a sugary stern air about them, then the downpour rocking the passion of the trapeze artist. The mountains never sleep, or at least they pretend not to. In the foothills, the sureness gone amok, heedless of all your primordial landscape that would rather lose a sound. Unknown, sweeping joys, untouched by civilization's dirty hand, plunging so they live in the folds, the valleys an expanse of kindness, glittering oracle, deft, those rotting, cracked stone images carved in the lonely mindscape of paintings, on the cypress-crowned walls, a Hindu shrine, red, then sapphire. And finally, to the symbolism of the mountains. What divine revelations do the Himalayas offer? What broken voices of our primitive consciousness are heard in the mountains? What forms of self-reflection and observation are precipitated by the formidable presence of the Himalayan loftiness, or of the Himalayas' loftiness? What natural metaphor and form of sacraments undergo a transformation within its frontiers? Why is it associated with moksha and detachment and renunciation, a tendency to use physical symbolism as a system of notation? We seek explanations for a conscious symbolism in the Himalayas, or are the explanations even more bewildering? I read. Your tall peaks see how your people become a part of you, your fingers and theirs a seamless, soul-smooth growth of human gestures, your bones and theirs a narrative of mingling cultures, broad shade, a part of you, a part of your silver deodar needs, simple prayers carved on monastery stones, your shadow fanned across curled lips of bells. As women carry their heavy loads, their faces disappear into your being, your masked conical heads, simple mountain cultures dangling out of simple singing syllables, happy as the wind blowing through your spaces, insisting on a simple way of life, like the glittering lights on your tumultuous back, twilight penetrating, clinking. Your killer peaks gyrate under the burden of those voices. Layers of modernity hide the truth, their porous selves smothered, like the heavy loads of hides carried on their backs, their truths reshaped into spanking new boots. Against your shocking authenticity, against your shimmering silence, the desire to be disappears. For you will displace their dust into your bones, so they will relearn the art of simplicity you so well exude amid your brightly feathered white glory. Up the valleys they bound into scattered legions of escape, through villages so accustomed to your warnings of sunrise, high mountains that proudly wait in fragile dignity, loose boulders and rocky trails that embellish, turning you over. Walk the old trade routes. The Sherpas are carriers of pain, like yaks bound to the purpose of life they never question. A necessary patch of your quiet dreamings, treasures that load, piercing, nor ever experimenting with their karma. So you would belong to your people, exhausted by sheer hardship. So would you belong to them, exposed and inaudible, disciplined by proximate danger, your unnamed peaks painted by an aggrieved belief, an aversion to any replicas of your immense beauty. So will they listen to your silent music, stirring agricultural wounds on your earth, profit from animal husbandry. History blows off your powerful repose. Traders filter their commerce in frontier villages, then weigh the circle of life, a strained flicker. Wandering in your wilderness, a cranking art, watching, reclusive, ribboning out large footprints in Baroon Valley, engulf the senses. Mystical ceremonies appease your condensed awareness. So lush, fabulous, Yeti mythology confounds you, doubling crypto spirals. Your long shadows back to back tell us unspeakable truths. If consciousness means you are the watchful ghost, raising us toward you with flooded lungs and assemblage of our earth traditions, earth feminine, fecund with its implacable history. Fully aware, your message gulped beyond your ever-expanding multiplicity. To meet your needs, we must give up ours. To meet new heavens, move towards your excruciating silence, tipped further up, as if spiritual aspiration grows on your trees. Between earth and heaven, what lies within the coils of your soul? Why would your being bind our minds like chains, when those who dig themselves out surrender, flee to your dissolving devices? Lay down on your cold surface the burden of mortal life, wheel-spoked world. Do your peaks and valleys simulate up and down, battle-fatigued life? The fickle fireflies plunging into an abyss, then seek refuge in ashrams. The beauty and the horror of the flesh restore mental balance fanned across the flame. Warmed by the gauzy light of your innards, meditate on detachment as your clear water tumbles down. Renounce the burdened, creeping holes of desire. Bemoan the rotting roots, tear the shackles of the body. Self-purification begins in the strange languages heard around you. Dissolve, uprise, writhe. Does sannyasa begin with you? Why would your glacier-shaved forms invite austere inner courses? To what end? You would strip the shaven heads of words, invite discord within the reaches of trust benign, gentle as your rolling veils. A sacramental meeting with tapas, unblended, closures, welling. Stranded without contributions, none, a shaven head and flowing beard, stuck against your ageless mountain corridors, is sannyasa, a way of self-purification. Resonate like a hymn, humbling, does pilgrimage to find you, or the crisscrossing paths of striving. Why would we come to you to renounce when your shapes multiply in the hushed silence of your ice-capped might? You dare connect new bridges that stretch from earth to heaven, down the mystical steep path, resonate with the spirit of conquering, a consciousness. Once gazing at your verticality like a stoplight of multiple centers, your sepia-toned colors adrift in the striving centeredness, navel-centered beings, high point of cosmic strength, if it means what it means, your vertical body staring in silence, eternal, prophesize, sacrifice, foreshadow. Your kind of prophecies carry an atmosphere of collaborative possibilities, like a new path of dreaming, gleaming unknowns. Your heights a mirage, like sedately blossoming powers, page turning back, eternity unguarded. Mountains of intention, what elaborate towers would you weave with the gesture of a dare, brilliant force of intention? Or is it invention? The fluidity of a golden eagle, what soaring heights would you move us toward, sage, or the virtue of what symbol? Thank you.
Let's have one last round of applause for Nishi, Geffrey, and Sarah for their wonderful readings. Thank you all so much for coming and enjoy the Montana Book Festival.
Thank you.